Welcome to Sellers Theatre in London. We're lucky to be with Martyn Lewis, broadcaster and journalist, who is going to talk to us about solution-driven journalism. Martyn, what is it about exactly?
Well, solutions-driven journalism is, if you like, a kind of compromise. Because I argued many, many years ago that we ought to change the balance between the positive and negative stories that we see in the media, so that there was just as much emphasis on success and achievement as there was on disaster and failure, and that you carried them both in tandem, so that you hold up a more accurate mirror to society. I now realize that a great many people in the media believe that 80–90% of the stories have to be negative. They have to concentrate on what is going wrong in the world. So if they believe that, here's what I mean by solutions-driven journalism. If you are a reporter going out on an essentially negative story, you should actually take the time and trouble to find out what individuals or organizations are doing to tackle the problem represented by that negative headline, and to include a few paragraphs or sentences about that in the body of your story, if it's appropriate. It won't always be appropriate, but where it is, you do that. And then, if you were able to achieve that, when your story goes out, the editors would get the negative headlines that they believe sell newspapers and attract audiences to television, but the reader, viewer, listener would not be left with the feeling that the world is going down the plug hole, but there is actually hope out there that people are doing amazing things in communities around this country, in communities around the world, to actually improve the world for the better. And it's just an element that is not quite, we're not getting the balance right in journalism.
What if the editor of these journalists saying, okay, I'm not interested in covering that part of the story, I want headlines who are bloody and sensational. What can the journalist do in that case?
Well, I'm suggesting they can have their headlines that are bloody and sensational, but somewhere in the body of the story you must actually give people hope that a problem is being tackled and is being addressed, and you must show people how that problem is being tackled and being addressed. You know, all around the world there are people in communities who identify an issue or a problem that is going on in their community, and they get together with colleagues, with friends, to do something about it. So if you were to say to me, where will the majority of this solutions-driven journalism come from? It will come from what we call the voluntary sector. It is people who identify issues and problems, and who I think are often much more representative of real democracy than the politicians that we elect every 5 years.
So on the grassroots level, that's where the communities are, that's where the solutions are being developed, and that's where the journalists should try to talk to.
Yep, and there are hundreds of stories, thousands of stories out there, because I chair an organization called the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service, and we give out 100, 120 awards each year to people who are doing great work at grassroots level in communities. Do you know, hardly any of these stories, and they are amazing stories, hardly any of them get into the media. And I just think the media has to change its mindset so that it is as prepared to look for interesting and exciting positive stories as it is for the negative stories, which, in my view, a lot of negative stories and pictures just fall into your lap. They don't require a great deal of investigative journalism to find. Not all of them, but many of them don't. And I think it is a much more difficult challenge to take a positive story that is really interesting, that has the potential to change the country, the world, or the city, or where we live, and actually make that interesting journalism that people want to watch, listen to, and read.
All right, so where can people get more information about this organization you have, or get involved with that process?
I don't have an organization. I simply make the argument, and it's an argument for a better balance between negative and positive news that I have been making for 20 years. All
right, so I'll put myself all the links about solution-driven journalism and where and how you can get involved, because it's coming from the bottom up. And thank you very much for watching.